Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Think CX 22. I'm going to wait about another 30 or so seconds till folks can join on and then kick us off. Awkward silence while attendees join in. I'm seeing the number continue to grow, so I'm just going to wait another couple seconds here.
Yes,
Thanks
this
for
is
your
always the
patience.
exciting time in the webinar when you get to just watch all the people come in.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Thank you for joining us for Think CX 22, turn landing pages into inside sales and telemarketing growth engines. Before I introduce our panelists, if you have any questions throughout the discussion, feel free to ask those in the Q&A area, and depending on, we can work those into the conversation. A playback will also be distributed via email, along with any resources that we plug during the webinar, such as blog posts or other relevant links. We also have a YouTube channel and 21 other Think CX topics posted there for your content consumption. So right after I do this introduction, I will plug those into the chat as well. And now for an introduction to our panel. Dawn Ridge partners with customers to apply technology to solve business problems, improve business metrics, and strengthen digital experiences. Currently working with Evolve AI, an AI-driven solution for digital growth optimization, Dawn is responsible for customer enablement and organic growth. Thanks for joining us, Dawn.
Thank you.
Jeff Burton is the managing director at Full Cup Creative, a Colorado-based agency that specializes in digital marketing optimization for enterprise clients that are heavily invested in the web. He has 22 plus years experience in digital marketing, marketing analytics, and optimization. He has helped drive digital growth with leaders across 50 plus companies, including many of the Fortune 500 and Internet Retailer 500 lists. Thanks for joining us, Jeff.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And our moderator for the panel today, John Tremblay, values technology's ability to transform businesses by challenging traditional ways of thinking. He brings over 25 years of experience defining and executing B2B marketing strategies. At Evolve AI, he is responsible for establishing the company as a leader in AI-driven optimization and personalization, which is transforming the way clients improve their customer experiences and grow their business. And with that, I will pass it over to you, John, to get us started.
Thanks so much, Maren, and thanks, Jeff and Dawn, for spending the next half hour or so with us discussing landing pages. So, Jeff, we're going to just start with you. Can you provide an overview of landing pages and what is good about them?
Sure thing. I suppose in its broadest sense, any entrance to a website is a landing page. But of course, in this sense, and most often what we refer to as a landing page is really just a single page or a small subset of pages that have been created specifically to receive traffic from a marketing source. Usually it's an ad, like a search ad or an affiliate partner. Maybe it's a marketing email, and the page is content that's tailored to the users coming from that source. Usually there's a conversion goal there, and often it's lead generation based. So, that's a good, I think, solid definition of a landing page. The value there, of course, is that it provides a consistent experience when you're clicking on an ad or coming from another source, and also it's relevant content for the user.
I think that's a great definition. Dawn, you want to add a little bit more in terms of what you see as the good value of a landing page?
I would say from a marketing point of view, when you're running a paid media campaign, it can be a really efficient and effective way to track the impact of whatever campaign you're running. Of course, I think there's lots that goes into that, and you'd want to be sure that whatever you're building is very relevant to those audiences that you're targeting through your paid campaign, and also that there's good alignment between the content from what brought them to the page and the page itself. But I think that's another really good use for a landing page, is to really help you track and optimize the value that you can get from your paid marketing and media spend.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a very, very popular tool. I know for those of us in marketing, we're always being asked why we're not spinning up more landing pages. So let's talk about that. What are some of the top use cases for landing pages? I mean, today we're very focused on financial services and home services and using landing pages as a way to become a feeding purpose into call centers or inside sales and telemarketing teams. But we know there's a much broader use cases. So why don't we just run through what we see really where they're most useful and most impactful for businesses?
Well, absolutely, John. And I can start, but I
Yeah,
welcome
please.
Jeff's point of view as well, because I know he has a lot of expertise across a variety of different verticals. I think really landing page use cases, if you will, landing pages are great when you have, if you will, a simple conversion metric. There's an action that you're driving, and there's something that you want the visitors to that page to focus on. So you're really tuning them into a desired action or activity that connects to whatever business outcome you're looking to drive. It might be the first step down a funnel, or it might be a step that converts the interest generated that got them to the page into that next step in the process. So it can be very focused, I think, depending on your vertical and depending on the complexity of your journey or your funnel. You might use a landing page at a different step in the process. I think they can be fairly adaptable, and there is a point and a purpose to them in many different organizations. So I guess what I say, use cases. I was chatting with Jeff before the call, and he commented that there's something like 55 million results for landing pages on Google in a simple search. And I guess that would really prove the point that there are probably as many use cases for landing pages as marketers and business owners can invent. But Jeff, what do you think about all of that? And do you agree or disagree with the breadth of the use case?
Yeah, that's great. I love landing pages as a long or an early form of personalization, really. It's been around for or they have, and like you said, there are so many different use cases. Really, it's just taking your segment and delivering something that's just a little more relevant to them than just sending everybody to the same general page. So that can come in many different shapes, sizes, and forms, of course, but yeah, so many different use cases.
I think one thing that I might comment on, and Jeff, I think we may be having a little trouble with your audio. It might be coming across a little choppy. So if you'd like to maybe address the audio, I can provide a little bit of point of view on one particular application for a landing page. We've talked a lot or intend to talk a lot about what happens with, appointment setting, or how one can convert the event that's being asked of the visitor to the landing page into something that can be followed up on in a professional services or home services environment. Certainly a great use of a landing page is the ability to take the interest that a visitor has shown by coming to the page and actually get them to an action which will allow another team to carry the ball forward. So I think appointment setting, or gauging interest, or a sign up for an event is a particularly good use case, almost regardless of category, but for certain in financial services and or in the home services space. So
Yeah,
thoughts on that, Jeff
and
or John?
yeah, and would you agree, both Don and Jeff, that one of the main purposes of the landing page at that point is to help that audience pre-qualify or qualify out, right? Because we're using it as a way to drive appointments or start a workflow for generating a home visit or starting a loan application or a credit card application or whatever it may be. So one of the important elements and use case for that landing page is to provide succinctly, because we have a short amount of time usually before somebody decides to leave, as we pointed out through some of the statistics, but to use that landing page to very carefully make sure that whomever submits it is actually a good lead. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And hopefully my audio is a little better here. I switched over to another microphone. Perfect. Yeah, 100%. I agree with that, John.
Excellent. And Don, you want to comment on a few of our clients that are in that space and sort of how dynamic that process is?
You are absolutely correct that it is dynamic. I think one of the things that happens with those landing pages is that the landing page content can be more static than the user behavior that actually then visits it. And I think one of the things that one must factor in when deciding whether or not to build a landing page and or how to build it is to what degree will you have the resources and the ability to continue to refresh and manage that page over time, so that the context that the visitors have always remains very consistent with the experience on the page. We talked a little bit about expectation setting, right? Like whatever's on the page should pay off wherever that visitor or persona is coming into the experience. And I think that's one of the things that we can all be more successful at doing, is understanding where people are and then helping them through that process of qualification. As you said, John, there's nothing wrong with providing an alternate path to a visitor if the one that you thought they were on proves to not be right for them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, Jeff, this brings us right into the topic of the life cycle of a landing page, because I think a lot of companies are guilty of just kind of throwing up a landing page and sort of forget it. They leave it there. And speaking personally from frustration, there's nothing more frustrating than seeing an ad. For instance, something that's advertising a particular offer may be a 0% refinancing fee or something like that. You click on that ad and you end up on a landing page that is not talking about this at all, right? So how is this impacting the importance of managing those landing pages?
Yeah, so much can be said around the life cycle of a landing page. In some cases, it may be predetermined in short. If it's a seasonal campaign or a short campaign with a specific offer that has a timeline, then for sure, maybe the page exists for a few weeks or a month or so. But a lot of landing pages, of course, whether it's the page has a goal of a subscription to a service or capturing a lead for a service or whatever the case is, just exists for a long time. So in those cases, you have to take the approach of a continuous optimization on those pages. And what happens often that we've seen is users will, or marketers will put up the pages and either build out the system that's too complex and then they find it hard to maintain, or they move on to another marketing initiative or program, and the pages are just left there to, still receive traffic, but they don't necessarily aren't kept up to date. So the life cycle really for a lot of pages should be considered to be in perpetuity, and the approach should be to continuously maintain them.
Yeah, and I know Don, we've spoken about how we have clients that I think in an effort to do that have created an absolute nightmare for themselves, where they have
Mhm.
literally hundreds of landing pages, and in an attempt to connect with different ads and different segments and try to personalize the messaging as much as possible, and it quickly becomes unmanageable, doesn't it?
Very unmanageable, because I think one thing that most people have acknowledged as a truth is that even in our own lives, we're being asked to do more and to be more and to multitask, and marketing departments and companies, small businesses as well, right? I mean, from small businesses to large businesses, people are in rather short supply, and there's human resource burden of ensuring that those tools are kept up to date and are maintained in a manner that will allow them to be really effective for the visitors to those pages. It's a very big burden, and a lot of companies won't have the bandwidth, either in people or in budget, to be able to support a lot of pages for the long haul. And so sometimes you end up contributing to, you're trying to solve a problem, but you end up creating a different problem that becomes almost as unmanageable as not having the pages in the first place. So I think one question is, what is the sweet spot for the number of landing pages that is both right for your customers and visitors, as well as effective and efficient for your capacity as a department or team?
Yeah, and I think that that sets up nicely the conversation about how to develop a culture of experimentation and what that looks like. But before we jump into that, Don, I just want to close out because you hit on traffic and how we're driving a lot of traffic to landing pages, but the sole goal of driving more traffic may not be the right one, right? So I think the question becomes how much traffic and is it the right traffic, and then what are you going to do with that traffic?
Absolutely, John. I think I was looking at some statistics to be very fresh right before this panel. And I read a statistic from SEM Rush that the average bounce rate for a landing page is 48%. That's the average. And at first I thought that was an astonishing number. I thought it was high. But then I thought, wow, that might not be as bad as what I might expect when you consider bounce rate from websites. I think one of the things that especially if you're using it for a paid media campaign, one of the things though that I think challenge all developers of landing pages to consider is if you are spending money to acquire that traffic, it behooves you to have as low a bounce rate as you can possibly have. And I think one of the tests of both your paid media campaign as well as your landing page is the degree to which you can ensure that that content is very relevant to whatever audience is arriving at that page. And I think one of the ways that you might be able to do that is to have the culture of continuous optimization and testing so that you're constantly considering how that page could be progressively more relevant based on what you've seen of the user behavior with the page. You don't want to spend a lot of money and increase your budgets to get traffic to a page that you aren't willing to take the time to determine how to make that page better in order for the visitors to be captured and for them to drive through to the conversion event.
Yeah, and then sometimes it also means having a very focused landing page, but giving an opportunity to send the traffic elsewhere if it turns out that that particular offer is not right on, but maybe something adjacent to it would be effective. Is that right?
I would absolutely agree with that. I think one of the things that perhaps we let landing pages off too easy on is that if for whatever reason the visitor is not in the right place to be able to act on whatever is being promoted, we don't give them any alternatives. And I think that's really something that we should think about. Just because the customer or potential customer that came to that page might not be well suited for what they thought that they were well suited for, they may discover that through our content. It's always a great idea to give them a plan B or a plan C. If this isn't right for you, sign up for this, or come back at this time, or go check out this other content, because then you're still capitalizing on whatever investment you made to bring that visitor to the page in the first place. And you're giving that visitor a really pleasant experience. You're not shutting them down. And I think that that bodes well for their relationship long-term with your company.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And I always smile when I think that we live in an industry where we're super satisfied when we can take our conversion from 2% to 2.1%. And that's considered a big win, right? I think we can do more with that. So, I mean, all that said, we've talked about there's so many variables, so many potential that you have to consider when you're using a landing page. So, Jeff, how does that lead us to this culture of experimentation, and what does it mean?
What does culture of experimentation mean? Ultimately, it is a mindset as well as a buy-in across the organization. It is, at one point, optimization and testing and whatnot was fairly siloed, at least when I started in this space, and really getting a broad acceptance, an agreement to what success is, buy-in from other parts of the marketing team, And also, it does require some oversight and accountability. Otherwise, you have a lot of people that have a stake and they all have their own personal or departmental or individual goals when it comes to conversion. And it is important that someone is certainly heading up those efforts when it comes to optimization. But yeah, there's, it's a pretty broad topic when it comes to culture, but those are some things that come to mind from, what we've seen and with some of our clients for sure.
Yeah, and Don, I think you would agree. It ultimately becomes about it's a game of speed and scale, isn't it?
It is a game of speed and scale. And I think one of the things that I would encourage as a starting point for any organization that's considering trying to establish a culture of continuous optimization within their company or team is to perhaps start with a learning agenda and to consider what kinds of things that you might want to know more about. And if you start from a perspective of curiosity about either your customers or where they're going within your company, what tools you've offered them, if you think through what kinds of things you might want to know that could help them have better experiences and help those tools work harder for you, then usually that's a pretty healthy place to start and encourage others to contribute too. I think one of the challenges with the culture of continuous optimization is that oftentimes different functions, different departments have different ideas. And it can be really challenging to make progress on what to test and how to test it when people are coming from different points of view. So if you can work to not only create your own perception of what we'd like to know or learn, but also draw others into the process, typically that helps quite a lot when you're kind of coming together with one unified learning agenda. And also the concept that failure is bad or that a test that might underperform doesn't teach you anything. I think that's another belief that might need to be constructively challenged in organizations, because even when something doesn't turn out the way that you expected it to, you've still learned something that will help to contribute to your knowledge over time.
I have a couple of points there. The speed and scale, totally agree with that. I would add consistency to that. And when it comes to measuring success, for so long, we often looked at conversion gains. And like you said, Don, it is learning as well. And I think there's a saying out there, test to win and test to learn. But we often look at program health metrics as better ways to measure the success of optimization. So velocity or learn rate, win rate, just key metrics like that. If you can stabilize those, then you have a good program because it's really the sum of many small wins over time that's really going to get you ahead with optimization versus looking for that big win. Chasing that big win often is what leads people down the path of ad hoc ideas and straying from whatever plan that was put in place when it comes to a learning path.
All right, so for all of you listening in today, this is still a good opportunity to ask any questions of the panelists if you want. But Dawn, I'm going to start bringing us home. So we started this webinar really with the intent of talking about inside sales and telemarketing teams. And I think we've hit on a lot of really important points. And of course, Evolve AI is a technology company, and we use artificial intelligence to help scale and increase the speed of your experimentation program. But that said, that opens the door to the art of the possible. But that involves two parts. It involves your technology stack, but it also involves the people in the process. And our two companies are working very closely together on a lot of clients. So let's just kind of bring us home and talk about what is possible when you can bring those two aspects of the solution together.
Oh my goodness. What is possible are conversion gains in the range of 10%, 14%. Like, and I'm obviously not going to disclose customers because that would be inappropriate, but it's a joy to see when it works, the way that it can improve outcomes and the way that it can become something that sort of sets the bar higher. I think one of the conversations that we had the other day was, this optimization is performing so well. When we are able to actually instrument some of these changes into the control, what's going to happen? Will we still be able to see even more gain and even more improvement? And I think where we landed is that that's a great problem to have. And the benefit of, I wouldn't be an Evolve employee if I didn't say, I think one of the greatest benefits of our product is the fact that you are able to have true continuous optimization, that you are realizing those gains at the same time as you're able to add additional hypotheses and ideas into the optimization to continue to see how much better you can have your experience perform, essentially. So I think that's a really strong attribute of what we do. And it also takes a customer who has the courage to continue to commit to the optimization process. So again, product and people.
Yeah, and before we move to Jeff's thoughts on this, one question came in asking us what's the best CTA to start with? Should we prompt for another schedule for an appointment? If it's merchandise, should it be click to cart? I think that's an area that both of our companies have experimented quite a bit with, and has various degrees of success. So Don, curious on just a couple of the recent lessons learned that we had about CTAs.
Sure, absolutely. And I don't know if you're Tom or Thomas, but thank you for the question. I think one of the things that I would suggest there that we have learned is that a CTA that is descriptive of the experience that the customer will receive is a very good best practice, because a lot of times there's, click here, click now. It's not quite the same as get your personalized guide. Schedule a consultation for, a personalized, I guess what I'm saying is they're probably clunky examples of personalization in CTAs, but I would tell you that what we have seen is the better the CTA aligns to the experience the customer will have, the more effective it is.
All right, Jeff, let's talk about the art of the possible from your perspective.
Yeah, just to further to your point, Don, it is first of all an opportunity to test what works for one page or for one user may not work for another. One thing we've seen recently, though, is consistency on the page with calls to action. So if you have a single offer, sometimes there's a temptation to present it in many different ways as you scroll down the page. Order now, or try for free, start here, and that can send signals of confusion potentially to users that are on the page. Are these different offers? Not really sure what it is. So keeping it consistent in addition to very descriptive of what to expect is something that we've seen. As for the art of possible, often we work with marketing teams that are looking to drive up conversion. So it's really a game of more gross leads. And when it comes to the possibilities around testing, it's really about generating more quality leads. So there's lots you can do there to better inform users on landing pages, better educate them. In some cases, depending on the organization and the goal, it could be to some sort of qualification process so that you can qualify out people that aren't really, relevant for a particular offer. So you really need to focus on what types of traffic you're sending to your call centers and how testing can help improve the quality of those leads, not just the gross volume of leads.
All right, well, we've come to the end, and I think we've just scratched the surface. I really appreciate all of you jumping in. Maren, I'm going to pass it over to you. We have a blog article that we wrote on this topic. If you want to check it out, we'll put that in the link real quick. So Maren, back to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Check out ThinkCX episodes 1 through 21 at evolve.ai. Dawn, Jeff, and John, thank you for your time. This has been a super insightful panel. If you have any recommended topics you would like to hear in the future, please reach out to me at hello@evolve.ai. And I am unable to multitask as quick as possible, but there's the blog.evolve.ai link in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.